Namaste. Welcome to Notable Talks, powered by Microsoft and co-presented by Value Prospect Consulting. I'm your host, Harsha Avasti. Notable Talks, a talk show where we host notable personalities from around the globe. And today we have with us one such notable personality, Mr. Arghya Bhattacharya, Vice President for Partnerships and Strategies at Signzy. Signzy, a market-leading platform that is redefining the speed, accuracy, and experience of how financial institutions are onboarding customers and business using the digital medium. So let's give Arghya a very warm welcome. Hi, how are you feeling today?
I'm good, Harsha. Thank you so much for having me here.
Today, digital transformation is a must across financial companies, and it is expected that a large part of the finance functions would be automated in the next few years. First of all, would you kindly explain to our audiences and our viewers what exactly is digital transformation from a FinTech perspective, and how the AI technologies of Signzy allows your clients to supersede their KPI goals?
Absolutely, Harsha. Great question. So I think from a digital transformation perspective, the definition is well understood across the industry today. And in some very simple terms, it's an exercise of automating in some ways your manual processes or manual tasks that you would typically do. Where AI comes into the picture, specifically with a platform like Signzy, is to actually take out the human intervention from it altogether and to make intelligent decisions, which would typically not be done by standard technology platforms. And that's where I think from a FinTech perspective and a finance perspective specifically, I think the Signzy platform comes in, eliminates the need for human intervention, and also uses AI very judiciously within the frameworks and the regulatory requirements to make decisions and automate processes where required.
Signzy offers an award-winning generic onboarding, which is also called GO, platform that is designed to deliver a seamless workflow experience through its no-code workflow builder. Could you explain what is GO platform is and how it leverages the workers' work performance that allows company to triple their productivity of sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So the GO platform is essentially, GO is short for generic onboarding. What Signzy specializes in very simple terms, is getting customers into the bank or a financial institution, right? And this is governed by, like I said, in one of my early, it's governed by regulatory requirements. It is also governed by a need for the sellers and the workers, to your question, to get these customers onboarded in an extremely short amount of time. What the generic onboarding platform does is it's an AI-infused no-code platform. So what that essentially means is we are able to build out customer onboarding journeys in a matter of actually days, as against actually building this out in a matter of months. And the way it translates into worker productivity is we are able to onboard customers in a matter of minutes, as against in a matter of days or months, as would happen in traditional setups. So imagine applying for a credit card that would take you multiple days earlier. Now your application is approved in a matter of minutes. And the same applies not only for individual products, but also for onboarding things like a merchant on behalf of an acquiring bank, and so on and so forth. So the generic onboarding platform, like I said, is a no-code platform, AI infused and integrated, and most critically, also compliant to regulatory requirements of the different countries that we operate in, and also ties into the national databases or the national database sources that are required to establish identity of an individual or a business that is being onboarded.
As we approach the era of Web 3.0, we hear a lot of buzz around blockchains that has become one of the key trends for stakeholders. Could you please explain how digitization is changing the investment sector and how your products, AI technologies, and automation serves different stakeholders in an organization to safely and more efficiently perform their transactions?
Oh, this is an excellent question. So I think there are it's also a very loaded question. So there are just so many aspects to it, right? So blockchain, yes, specifically in the finance fintech sector, is becoming critical, specifically from a point of view of unifying identity of people across different financial institutions, right? So having a single source of truth, specifically from a blockchain perspective. AI becomes extremely critical, especially in the investment, finance, or the banking sector, when you're trying to establish identity of people who are trying to enter the financial system, either as as customers, essentially, right, individuals or businesses. And finally, you spoke about the various channels of where people would transact in the future, right? So, as an example, Signzy just recently received the U.S. Patent Office. A patent was granted for banking in the metaverse, right? Which essentially means that you don't have to physically be present in a bank branch to buy products or to apply for additional products that you need, or you want to just simple things like opening an account, right? It could actually happen through the metaverse itself. So, in that sense, I think there is rapid evolution in how these technology, the Web 3.0 technology set is actually evolving. Having said that, I think what we will learn going forward is how these technologies are applied and used to solve real world problems. I think that's going to be the most critical aspect as we get into the Web 3.0 revolution.
I think that's very, very, very interesting to know. As the BFSI and NBFC industries are not only limited to banks and fintech anymore, but also consumer tech apps, and thus has been an important area for improving the experiences for businesses as well as for the customers. From your seasoned expertise, what do you consider as the lying issues in the financial industries, and how does the Signzy stack help the users to overcome those issues?
Yeah, so I think again, it's a enormously hot button item in some ways, right? So there is this whole influx of fintech providers and players that you hear about, and that we also interact on a day-to-day lives with or interface with, which are consumer apps. And that's on one side. And then on the other side are the traditional banks, who have really been the powerhouse of servicing the financial markets or the financial industry and consumers like us, right, in a lot of ways. So where platforms like Signzy and Signzy type platforms become extremely useful is for actually these traditional financial institutions to start behaving like fintechs, right? And to help them actually become more consumer centric and more consumer appish in some ways. You use the word consumer apps in your question, right? So the closer we can get these financial institutions to behaving like consumer firms in some ways, I think that's where the value add of Signzy platform and Signzy type platform comes into the picture. And in that specifically, I think with a focus of making ease of use, or focusing rather on ease of use, making turnaround times for things that consumers want extremely short. And also from a financial institution or a bank's perspective, the ability for them to adapt or to use platforms like Signzy in a very, very short time, right? I think if one focuses on these 3-4 areas, I think those would be the key underlying issues that one needs to address, which is quick adoption of technology by traditional firms, B, giving it a very consumer-centric experience, C, kind of making the turnaround times extremely short for both deploying technology and for consuming the technology or consuming the bank's products and services. So I think those would be a few areas I guess one should focus on when they're looking at underlying areas, Harsha.
While digital transformation is now a global trend, there are still many companies that experience difficulties in adopting the new technologies due to inadequate IT budgets and management skills, as well as its perceived technological complexities. However, Signzy reports a significant figure of 10 million new onboardings per month and an 80% lower cost of onboarding. Could you kindly share the roadmap for a company to smoothly onboard with Signzy for their successful digital transformation?
Absolutely, Harsha. So I think at the core of anything, to simplify it, is to understand what a financial institution wants to achieve when it comes to onboarding individuals or businesses as their customers. I think that's one. And that is an intersection of process, technology, regulatory requirements rather. And once you've understood that, right, platforms like Signzy and Signzy specifically, being a no-code platform, right, can very quickly adapt to the process changes required, bakes into the platform regulatory requirements that the financial institutions or banks recommend us to do. And like and of course we have these tie-ups with government databases required. We have AI infused as part of our platform. So the way Signzy helps is essentially quick adoption of technology once the business problem is well understood and defined. And then finally, once it's put in place or the banks have adopted it, then it becomes a question of how do you make it available to your end customers, right? And which is where having an experience which is very close to a consumer app for firms like a Signzy's product gives that experience, and that makes it easy for end customers to also start using the technology that financial institutions actually make available to them. So that's essentially the focus, again, to keep it very simple. Adoption of technology by banks has to be made simple, which is where Signzy comes from a point of view of having a no-code platform, pre-integrated data sets, AI-infused, automated decision-making. And finally, once the platform is adopted by banks, for end customers, they get a consumer-like experience when they get onboarded with financial institutions. So these would be the two key things that Signzy has done extremely well to essentially simplify and help essentially banks onboard millions of customers, the numbers that you actually spoke about.
Today, with the growing cyber attacks and online financial frauds, digital identity has been recognized as an important element in the digital infrastructure. First, could you explain what digital ID is and how Signzy assists in boosting the customer's security infrastructure and optimizes their user experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I think, again, very simple question, but extremely loaded in terms of the elements that go into it, right? So essentially from an identity perspective or digital identity perspective, if you look across the globe, right? If you look at a US, for an individual, it's social security number. In India, we have PAN and Aadhaar. For businesses, there are various business identities, right, which can be actually looked at or checked for to look at the validity, right? Now, the way we have to think of solving the digital identity problem is and not only looking at these sources of data and identity, but also tying it with regulatory steps and compliance requirements, right? So onboarding an individual might actually mean, as an example, checking their social security number, but at the same time, making sure that it's actually a live individual who's applying for an account, let's say, right? And that's where platforms like Signzy come into the picture, where we have AI infused. So just to give you an example, so like we're connected on this virtual call, we have AI capabilities which which allows financial institutions, as an example, to actually check for liveness of a person, meaning is Arghya speaking on this virtual call actually alive? Is the person who owns the social security number or the PAN Aadhaar number in the case of India? And is this person actually geographically applying from a location that is compliant for the regulations, right? So is it a case of me sitting in India applying for an account in the US, which regulations don't allow, right? So to the question, I think the way Signzy is solving for identity is not just looking at sources of identity and data, but also infusing AI in various ways. So geotagging, figuring out where the user is coming from, are they actually live, with the end objective of stopping bad actors or fraudulent actors actually entering the financial system. So I think, Harsha, that's the key from a point of view of actually looking at identity and the points at which we intervene, meaning at the point of entry, right? So that will actually eliminate a lot of bad actors entering a financial system. And once that is taken care of at the point of entry, then once inside the system, the chances or the probability of fraudulent transactions or fraudulent activity actually goes down significantly.
100%. I think, of course, that is important. Thank you for your answer, Argo. How is Signzy leveraging Microsoft to enhance its end consumers' user experience?
Sure, Harsha. Yeah. So Signzy is closely aligned with Microsoft's three cloud strategy. Our generic onboarding platform, a lot of our AI services run on Azure, which is one of their clouds. We have a strong interplay with Microsoft Dynamics, specifically on the CRM side of it, where we integrate in a lot of instances to pass on customer data. And the third aspect is a lot of what we do at Signzy is to do with checking liveness of consumers based on video products, and which is where our the third cloud alignment comes with Microsoft Teams. And apart from this, as we speak, Signzy is in the process of getting onboarded on the Microsoft for Financial Services Cloud, which was recently launched and is now available for the US and the UK markets. So very closely aligned with what Microsoft is doing with their three cloud strategy and also with their newly launched Financial Services Cloud.
Thank you for your answer, Argo. And now is the time for rapid fire round. So I'm just gonna, to begin with, I'm just gonna give you one word. I'm gonna just say one word, and whatever first word comes to your mind, just answer me that. Okay? Sounds good?
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's start with that. So what comes to your mind when I say digital transformation?
AI, cloud.
When I say cloud?
Azure.
When I say music?
Beatles.
Unified communications?
Teams.
Automation?
Signzy.
Yourself?
Golf.
Interesting, very interesting. I really liked it. Okay, so something you wish you knew earlier in your life. It can be more than one.
Just lots of things. So
Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, not to react to questions specifically in rapid fire formats and apply it on the business side, actually. So, think a little bit more than I typically would, but yeah.
Okay. Your role model?
Ooh. I guess my dad.
Super. Your favorite Microsoft application?
Teams.
A social cause you would like to work more on in near future?
Education for girls, for underprivileged girls.
Super. And if you have to give us your success mantra or formula, whatever you want to call it, in one line, what that would be?
Just stick to it. There is no formula or mantra. Just keep at it and keep trying stuff.
Yes, I think that's nice. Actually, I really second you on that. So this is it. This was our rapid fire whole round, and I think you did great, Argo. And thank you so much for taking the time for us for today. And I think this Notable Talks was like really specifically very interesting for me as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Harsha, for hosting me. It was a pleasure as well. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So this is it for this episode of Notable Talks, powered by Microsoft and co-presented by Value Prospect Consulting. We would be back with another one real soon. This is me, Harsha Awasthi, saying take care. Goodbye.